Thai police pat themselves on the back and begin search for two new suspects, while Malaysia's Prime Minister vows to stay in office after nearly 250,000 rally against him. Plus, new restrictive laws go into effect in Myanmar. These stories are coming up next. This is the Asia Brief. Good morning, everyone. Steve Miller here on this Tuesday, September 1st, 2015. Thank you so much for joining me today. Now, today's podcast will be a bit short as I have to jet out of the office this morning. But that being said, let's kick things off with more from Thailand and the quickly developing story on the Bangkok bombing. After announcing the arrest of the Thai bombing suspect over the weekend, the pace of the investigation has, sped ahead. Here are the latest updates from Bangkok. First, Thai Police Chief Somyot Phumpanmuang lauded over the officials that conducted the groundwork, which led to the arrest, saying, quote, "The accomplished work that led to the arrest is truly the work of the authorities and their investigative abilities. This was the work of the Thai authorities. There were no tip-offs." End quote. He then proceeded to disperse about $83,000 as a reward, even though no direct link to the bombing has been made to the suspect in custody. It does seem a bit too premature to be handing out that kind of cash, especially given the criticism being levied against Somyot. This comes off as more of a public relations move than one of good policing, and that isn't lost on anyone. As for the suspect in custody, it's being reported he was staying in an area considered to be a staging point for Uyghurs going to Malaysia or Turkey. Police have also stated that the suspect isn't cooperating with authorities. Really? You think? Why would he? If he is responsible, he would be an individual that detonated an explosive device that killed 20, could have killed more, and injured well over 100. That's the mark of someone who does not care about anyone else. It's foolish to think he would cooperate. Police also announced warrants for two new suspects following a raid on a second apartment unit that had additional bomb-making materials present. The new suspects are a 26-year-old Thai woman and a foreign man in his 40s. Still, no group has claimed responsibility, so the lingering question in all of this that has yet to be answered is, why? After a weekend of peaceful protests in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak said he's not going anywhere and vowed to stay in office. He called the 230,000 or so protesters people of shallow mind and poor national spirit. It's not surprising to hear Najib vowing to stay in office, but the use of inflammatory language will only bolster those that want to take him down. Look, as a head of state, when you're facing significant fraud allegations, it isn't a wise move to fire the Attorney General conducting the probe, which Najib did. It looks retaliatory, and if there is a legitimate beef, you can find a better way. Also, Najib is starting to face a true political challenge. Not only is the political opposition continuing to voice their objections, the fact that nearly 250,000 people came out against him should send clear signals he needs to make a course correction. This political crisis will continue and possibly gain momentum to the point where Najib will need to take some sort of action to silence his critics. Myanmar's president signed into law the last of 4 bills championed by radical Buddhists but denounced by rights groups as aimed at discriminating against the country's Muslim minority. Myanmar will be holding its first Democratic national poll in more than 20 years this upcoming November 8th and has seen a growing amount of anti-Muslim hate speech since 2011. President Thein Sein signed the monogamy bill into law that punishes people who have more than one spouse or live with an unmarried partner other than the spouse. The government denies it is aimed at Muslims, estimated to take up about 5% of the population, and some of whom practice polygamy. The president also signed 2 other laws which restrict religious conversion and interfaith marriage, and in May, the president signed a population control bill that forces some women to space 3 years between each birth. Phil Robertson, Deputy Director of the Asia Division of Human Rights Watch, said, quote, "They set out the potential for discrimination on religious grounds and pose the possibility for serious communal tension. Now that these laws are on the books, the concern is how they are implemented and enforced." End quote. That a government tries to suppress any faction of a population, no matter how marginal, is deplorable. When are leaders going to learn that we're all in this together? Well, my friends, those are today's stories, and I hope you'll take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments on Facebook or Twitter. The Asia Brief is a special feature of the Asia News Weekly podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with your friends, and if you haven't, subscribe. Subscribing is free, and when you do, the next episode is delivered automatically to you. You can subscribe on our website, asianewsweekly.net, or in your favorite podcast application. You can also keep up with more news from the region by following Asia News Weekly on Facebook or Twitter. And if you have any comments, questions, or feedback, be sure to drop us a line. That email address is podcast@asianewsweekly.net. Thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, remember to be true to yourself and to always be awesome.